So, James Fox's new documentary, Moment of Contact, just dropped yesterday, and I had a chance to watch it. Here are my thoughts. By the way, this is Cosmic Road, where I discuss UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, that'd be awesome. Please subscribe, that'd be even more awesome. And hit the bell next to the subscribe button. Please share this video to maximize its impact, and I have social media links below. Facebook and Twitter. Please follow me there and help me grow this platform. There's also a PayPal button below if you wanted to support the channel. Okay, now let's get into Moment of Contact. I am a huge fan of the James Fox movies, Out of the Blue and The Phenomenon. Out of the Blue especially was foundational for me in my evolving understanding and acceptance of the UFO phenomenon. A few years ago, I didn't believe in any of this. Before the 2017 Navy videos came out, I did not believe any of this, as I thought crazy nonsense at the time. And, I was an atheist and a non-believer in anything mundane, or non-mundane, I should say. I thought we lived in a really boring and mundane world. There was no magic, there was no aliens, there was no spirituality, and I have slowly come to embrace all of those things in various ways. So, in that, all because of those videos that came out that made me start taking it seriously, and then I started to explore and see if this was real. And Out of the Blue came along. It was an older movie, but I think early 2000s or even later. Anyway, but whatever, I watched it and it blew my mind, and it really helped me see the UFO phenomenon as real, and not just real in the present, but real historically. So, it showed, the evolving phenomenon in terms of our understanding of it and our government's response to it. Out of the Blue was probably the movie that I saw that helped me the most to really come to accept that UFOs were real. Then along comes The Phenomenon, and I have to say that is probably the best movie to get if you have a friend that doesn't believe in UFOs, but is a little open-minded to wanting to explore the topic. You give them The Phenomenon, you sit down and you make them watch The Phenomenon, and I think they will start leaning in the direction of acceptance of the phenomenon. So, the UFO phenomenon, not just accepting the movie. So, so I really applaud James Fox. I think he's awesome. I think that those two movies, Out of the Blue and The Phenomenon, if you show them to a non-believer, a skeptic, but one that's open-minded enough to consider the evidence, I think if you show that to them, those two movies, they will possibly get off the fence. If they are open-minded enough to be on the fence in the first place. So you can imagine how excited I was when James Fox announced he had a new movie coming out, and it was about this really interesting case in Varginha, Brazil. And it just dropped yesterday, and like I said, I had a chance to check it out. In fact, I rushed to check it out. And okay, so here are my thoughts. Okay, so first of all, spoilers. I can't really discuss the movie without going into specifics about it. So if you want to go into the movie fresh without having it spoiled for you, here officially is your spoiler warning. So James Fox gets his crew together and they go to Brazil and they're filming stuff. And they have a series of interviews with the people that were involved or witnessed to the events surrounding this UFO crash. And I'm going to take you through it a little bit. I'm not going to give a blow-by-blow of the movie, but I'll give kind of an overview of the situation and of the events that happened. And I really encourage you to check out the movie for yourself and make up your own mind. But yeah, the movie is a series of interviews with these various people. And starting with the gentleman that saw the UFO crash, and he actually takes James Fox and his film crew out to the crash site. And of course, there's nothing left. I mean, you would never know that it was the crash site. But so there's this cigar-shaped, craft that crashed, and the gentleman that takes them out there say that beings died there. He doesn't say how he arrived at this knowledge. I would have loved for him to expound on that and tell us about if he saw bodies there or bodies being taken away, but he doesn't say any of that. He just says that beings died there. That's important because there's kind of a mystery in my mind later on in the film about which beings were alive and which beings were dead when the army started to get involved. So I would have loved to have a little more, a little more details about the beings that were supposed to have died there. Now the film jumps to two beings that were supposedly on the loose out of this ship. They were possibly wounded or injured, looking for help. Who knows? But they were out in the little town of Virginia. I'm going to butcher that name. Yeah, so they were loose in the town, apparently separately. And these two girls and one woman, they see one of these beings, and it's this little dark being, not very big, with big red eyes. There's an artist rendition of it, and it looks like it's cowering in fear and just terrified, which makes sense if they're, if I crashed in a foreign land and were wandering around looking for help, I would be pretty terrified too. The girls, freaked out, understandably, and ran away. It should be mentioned here that the being had a very strong and unpleasant odor, somewhere between sulfur and ammonia. That's something that comes up again and again, not just in this film and this incident, but in many incidents involving the beings. There's at least one race or possibly multiple races of beings that emit a distinctly unpleasant aroma, if you will. And there's this one case I'm thinking of where there was a military guy whose superior was introducing him to the beings for the first time. And, this is some Area 51 kind of stuff. And the superior is warning him that, yes, the beings have this horrible smell, but don't mention it and don't let on about it, essentially because they will take offense if you are, if you don't like their smell and if you blanch or, show disgust at it. Anyway, so there are numerous examples of this throughout UFO alien lore, that there are beings that have terrible smells. In that particular case with the Area 51 type incident, I believe they were gray aliens. These, however, in the Virginia incident, while similar to gray aliens in size, they differ in other ways. Their appearance does not seem to conform exactly to the grays. And the grays don't seem to typically operate cigar-shaped craft. At least according to my research. Who knows? Maybe cigar-shaped craft are their craft of choice. But typically grays are associated with saucer-shaped vehicles. Before I go any further, please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. Okay, moving on. So the girls, they go and get their mother, I believe, and some of my memory may be off, but I think they get their mother, and they go back to the site where the alien was, and there is a footprint left by the being, three-toed footprint. Now that's important because there's a discrepancy later on. So that's the end of their encounter. Then we cut to that alien, supposedly that alien being captured. And it was, I think, a military intelligence or it was a military police officer that actually physically tackled the being and captured him, with the possible assistance of his partner, who later on in the film refuses to be interviewed and even threatens to shoot James Fox and his crew if they persist in trying to interview him. Well, the gentleman that physically tackled and assaulted the alien, he, after that incident, he becomes very ill and dies as a direct result of physical contact with the being. And I think that's really interesting, coming off of the video that I put up yesterday when I talk about how the blue orbs especially are or can be dangerous if you actually have physical contact with them. And sometimes they don't give you a choice, like in the incident that I was talking about, where the blue orb was just, there were two of them that entered his body. There, I muted my phone. But yeah, so the gentleman in question who had the blue orbs enter his body came down with a very rare form of cancer that they were able to get rid of. But in the case of the fellow that tackled the alien, he actually died. So what is it about contact with aliens or beings or even orbs that can be toxic? I have no idea, but I think that is an important question that should be addressed. Now, there was another being. We don't get a lot of details about that being, but it also was captured. It was captured by the fire department, interestingly enough, and they used a net to get it. Very wisely, as it turns out, because that way they could avoid physical contact with it. Meanwhile, the military is cordoning off the town and blocking people from going to and fro, and they bring a body to an X-ray technician to have him X-ray this dead being. Whether this being is one of those two that were captured alive and then possibly subsequently died, or if this being came from the ship, is unclear. So they X-ray the being, and the military guys take it away, and it's there's the horrible smell that I mentioned earlier. Well, this dead body emits that terrible smell as well. So much so that they have to close off that section of the hospital. That smell lingers even after the body is taken away for days, and it doesn't go away. So, just a really, really bad, funky smell this being gives off. Possibly because it's from another world with a different atmosphere, and it eats weird stuff and, weird to us, and that's just how it is. Oh, and I should mention a very important detail. There's another witness who, at the time that the two beings were loose in the city, saw another ship, and I believe this one was saucer-shaped, that seemed to be looking for something. So one can presume that that was another being or another set of beings on that ship that were either looking for the survivors that were loose in the city or looking for the downed ship. So that's interesting, if that's true, that there are cigar-shaped ships working with the saucer-shaped ships. Now, like I say, the gray aliens are often associated with the saucer-shaped ships. So would those be gray aliens aboard those ships, or would it be the little blue kind of guys that were seen in the Varginha incident? In any case, the aliens, whatever they were in the saucer-shaped ship, weren't able to find those two beings because they were captured by the government. Meanwhile, the government is blocking the roads and sending people home and not letting them get close to any of this stuff. James Fox is also able to get interviews from government people that were involved in what happened after with the transporting of the bodies. And here's where the discrepancy comes in, because the government, the main guy that was able to, was part of the moving of the bodies, describes their feet as being like that, as having two toes, which is at odds with the mother of the girls, who said there were three toes, that she found the three-toed footprint. So was she misremembering? Was he misremembering? What's going on there with that discrepancy? I kind of wish the film had addressed that openly and given some sort of answer for that, or at least, said, shrugged and said, what does that mean? I would have kind of felt a little better about it, that at least the film acknowledged that discrepancy. Not that I think that the discrepancy really means anything. I don't think that it means anybody necessarily is lying. People misremember stuff all the time. But it is a detail worth noting. Around this time, the U.S. government comes into the picture because, of course, the U.S. government is part of this. And we have the men in black going around trying to silence people, like the mother of those girls. And she basically tells them to go to hell, which really is curious, because the men in black, historically can be very threatening, and they seem like they are able to carry out their threats, at least in the U.S. So does that mean they have less power in another country? I mean, that would kind of make sense. So, because she calls their bluff, and apparently they were indeed bluffing, and they go away. Interesting. But yeah, so the men in black are going around trying to shut people up and silence them and saying, don't talk about this stuff. Meanwhile, the Air Force comes along and takes the bodies of the aliens. Now, again, this is there's some unclear stuff going on here, because I would really like an answer on whether they took those two living beings that were captured alive, as well as the dead bodies. Or did those two living beings that were captured alive, did they succumb to their injuries or their treatment, or, not having the right food or whatever, and then perish shortly thereafter? The film doesn't address that, and I wish we had some answer, or some attempt at an answer on that question, because we don't know if the Air Force was able to bring any alive beings out of this incident. That's very reminiscent of the Roswell incident, when there was said to have been at least one being that was taken alive. And there's different accounts of what happens to that being afterwards. Some say it died about a year later. There are some stories that say it was returned to its people. It's hard to trust any of those stories exactly, because I think the closer you get to the truth of the heart of this stuff, the more disinformation there probably is. In any case, very similar incidents. A crashed ship, dead bodies of aliens or whatever, and at least one living being, taken into custody alive, potentially. So that's it for the events of the movie. Generally, it's a series of interviews with people that were witnesses or even participants to this crash and retrieval. The ship, of course, was taken by the military, and probably went to the U.S. Air Force, who took the bodies. And it's very interesting that it was the Air Force doing it, because, of course, that's the Area 51 guys. That's Wright-Patterson. That's Roswell. It was the Air Force guys who went aboard the Nimitz and took the data bricks from the jet pilots, the jet fighters, that contained their information and their data on the Tic Tac and other incidents, or at least on the Tic Tac. Why was it Air Force personnel that went aboard a Navy ship and took sensitive information from a Navy ship, and the captain of the ship allowed it to happen and told the people to go along with it? What higher level program is running where this is allowed and where the Air Force is the one doing it. Obviously, my mind goes to the breakaway group and the Area 51 guys, Majestic 12, the control group running this stuff. That's where my mind goes, but who knows? At any rate, it seems important that it is the Air Force doing it. And it totally makes sense that it would be the Air Force doing it, because whatever is going on, whatever the government's, the U.S. government's interest in the UFO phenomenon is, the Air Force is almost certainly the one leading the way on that, and it is in deep with the phenomenon. I don't know if it's secret space fleet deep, but it's deep. So what do you think about all this? Please let me know in the comments below. I think this is a fascinating case. I wish James Fox had been able to get some footage or some pictures, and I know that he wished he did too. In fact, there's a postscript on the movie saying they're still looking for video and other evidence. As it is, all we have now is a series of interviews. So I don't think it's going to convince any skeptical people. But for those people who acknowledge the existence of the UFO phenomenon, as I do, and as I'm sure many of you do, then this is a really great movie for us to explore a case that we probably haven't heard much about and don't know much about. So I think it's a very valuable movie for that. For people that are already, believers in the phenomenon, to learn about a very interesting case, in a different country. So I give this movie a thumbs up, and I hope you give this video a thumbs up. Please hit like, please subscribe, and hit the bell next to it. That would be super cool. Trying to get more subscribers to this channel. Just broke the 1,000 mark. That's awesome. Keep it coming, guys. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. Also, please hit the social media links below. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, trying to grow this platform. So please follow me there. And there's even a PayPal button below if you wanted to support the channel. Buy me a taco. That'd be awesome. All right, until next time, Cosmic Road out.